Welcome to Dubrovnik.
The walled city of Dubrovnik is one of the most impressive cities in the Balkans, and in this video, we're covering it all, from the must-see historical sites to the city's most unique attractions. We'll share details on how to reach the best viewpoints, insider tips on how to beat the crowds, how to sit on the original Iron Throne, and so much more. So hit that like button, and we'll walk you through the top things you need to do and see when you visit Dubrovnik, Croatia. The first spot in our list is to walk Dubrovnik's famous city walls. Being both a fortress and a city, Dubrovnik's walls are one of the most impressive elements of both its skyline and its history. With the existing city walls starting construction in the 13th century, these massive stone barriers help tell the story of Dubrovnik and are one of the best ways to see the city from above. Once you enter the walls, you'll walk along towering stone pathways and up and down ancient stairs. Along the way, you'll find impressive fortifications that overlook the city's even more impressive views.
So we're walking the Dubrovnik walls right now. It takes about an hour and a half to walk the full length of the wall, but that obviously is going to depend on your pace. This is an attraction that can be a little bit pricey, but it is 100% worth it. You get the best views of the city here.
And speaking of prices, we'll share a trick later in this video where you can walk the walls and enter some of the other paid top spots for the same price, so stay tuned.
So we've officially made it to the highest point on the walls in Dubrovnik, and the views up here are amazing, but I think the views along the entire walk have been equally great. As you kind of wind along the crest, you see different parts of the city, you see different parts of the sea, and it's all just beautiful. One thing that surprised us was how many cafes, refreshment stops, and even a couple public bathrooms along the way, as well as artists and souvenir shops. So even if you're up here, there's definitely still some action going on, and you still get amazing views. And one more thing to consider when you're coming into the walls, it can get awfully hot up here, so we highly recommend trying to time your visit either for early in the morning, or if you're like us, come right before sunset, and it grants you the city and probably the prettiest lighting you can imagine.
In addition to the walls surrounding the city, your city wall ticket also grants you same-day access to another top spot in Dubrovnik, St. Lawrence's Fort. This fortress is located outside the walls of the city and is about a 10-minute walk from the old town's main pile gate. Here, you can explore the castle grounds, or if you're like us, you can huff and puff your way all the way to the top, only to be turned away at the entrance because there's a wedding planned that day, so you never know. Regardless, we've heard this is a great place to explore when visiting Dubrovnik, especially if you're a Game of Thrones fan, as we've heard there are several filming locations inside the fortress itself.
Next on our list is to explore Dubrovnik's charming old town and visit some of the main sites within the walls. If you're like most travelers and enter through the pile gate on the west side of the city, you'll immediately be greeted by one of Dubrovnik's most charming walkways, the Stratum.
One of the spots you need to see when you're wandering the old town is the Srd. This is the main street in Dubrovnik. It's really scenic, as you can kind of see behind me. Definitely hustle and bustling. With these limestone streets being over 600 years old, there's a lot of history here.
One fun thing near the start of the Stratum is the Mascaron stone. Legend has it if you jump onto this funny stone face and are able to take off your shirt and put it back on again without falling off, you'll soon fall in love.
Just beside the stone is the entrance to one of our favorite spots in Dubrovnik's old town, and that's the Franciscan monastery. Nestled in a shaded street just off the Stratum, you'll find one of the city's most authentic attractions. Here, you can explore a small, yet beautifully kept cloister, complete with beautiful plants and shaded walkways. The building is surrounded by classical paintings that are hundreds of years old, and there's even an included mini museum on site where you can appreciate the history of this spot. We felt this was one of the most picture-perfect spots in Dubrovnik, and was an off-the-beaten-path spot to ditch the city's notorious crowds. And I know from my phrase it might not look it, I actually really enjoyed my time here.
So we've made our way into the cloister at the Franciscan monastery, and I think this might be the most tranquil spot we've found in all of Dubrovnik. Being built in the 13th century, this place is over 700 years old, and the architecture is just amazing. When you think of Dubrovnik, you think of the big, hardy city walls that feel really old but really military-esque, and this just feels so ornate and almost dainty. We're absolutely loving just getting some fresh air, feeling the breeze coming through these walls, and enjoying the greenery and just the absolutely beautiful architecture in the Franciscan monastery.
So what we have behind me is a pharmacy that was actually built in 1317. It's the third oldest pharmacy in the entire world, and it's actually the oldest running pharmacy that's still in operation today. Even right now, you can see people picking up their prescriptions in there. One thing to note is that it is located within the Franciscan monastery, but you don't seem to need a ticket to actually enter the pharmacy because it is a working pharmacy. So if you're just interested in the pharmacy, you can skip the Dubrovnik pass altogether, and maybe even pick up some meds you might need.
After leaving the Franciscan monastery, if you wander down to the other end of the Stratum for about 5 minutes, you'll find another one of Dubrovnik's most important buildings.
So a spot that's worth checking out while you're in the old town is the Church of St. Blaise. You'll see St. Blaise's name and statues of him all over the old city, and that's because he's actually the patron saint of Dubrovnik. He's also the patron saint of sore throats, but you don't hear that advertised around here as much. Legend has it that St. Blaise appeared to a priest to warn of a Venetian invasion, and that priest was then able to save the city. So ever since then, he's become an icon of the city, and this church behind us is dedicated to him. And funny enough, it's actually built in the Venetian style, so clearly, even though he prevented a Venetian invasion, over time they were able to come to appreciate the amazing architecture architecture that Venice was known for.
And this church has lots of history. Dubrovnik city officials decided to build this church exactly 1 month after the Black Plague arrived in the city in hope that the patron saint would protect the civilians. And despite being rebuilt a few times over the ages, it's still one of Dubrovnik's most important churches. You can enter for free, and inside you'll find an elaborately decorated church. The Baroque architecture in here is grand, and it can be a great place to escape the heat on a hot Dubrovnik day. There are some great churches all throughout the city, and it's worth popping into a few to see their unique art and architecture.
Across the city from the church is another spot you need to see in Dubrovnik's Old Town, and that's the Jesuit Steps. This iconic staircase connects the lower section of town to the Jesuit church and college and has been featured in several iconic pieces of pop culture, including a famous scene in Game of Thrones. So if you're a GOT fan, you need to check this place out. Oh, and while you're at the base of the steps, be sure to say hi to Johnny the Boss, probably the most famous cat in all of Dubrovnik, and the unofficial mascot of the Jesuit Steps. Another spot you'll need to see in the Old Town is Dubrovnik's famous clock tower. Here you'll find a large clock face, as well as 2 giants that actually move to ring the bell every hour. If you're here around noon, the bell tower song is longer and prettier, which can be a fun thing to time if you plan well. We felt this reminded us of the giant Moors on the clock tower in Venice, so be sure to check out our Venice video if you're interested in seeing this as well. And while exploring the Old Town, you'll have to visit one of the timeless markets Dubrovnik is known for. Given that locals used to shop for near everything at these markets over the centuries, this can be a fun spot to wander if you're looking to feel like you're living in the past. Walking through these markets in downtown Dubrovnik, you're hit by a pretty powerful lavender scent. The climate and soil of Croatia are perfect for growing lavender, so it's a popular souvenir item here. And man, does it make the market smell good. So if you're in Dubrovnik and you're looking for a souvenir, maybe pick up a bag of dry lavender, and a plus is that it'll make your suitcase smell a little better too.
The next item on our list is taking us out of the walled city and way up to one of the best viewpoints in all of Dubrovnik. And traveling to the top is all part of the fun. If you don't feel like hiking the hour-plus journey from sea level, you'll love this next option, and that's to take Dubrovnik's cable car. Being the first cable car ever on the Adriatic, Dubrovnik's cable car has been a classic way to score great views for decades. You can purchase cable car tickets from several spots in and around Dubrovnik's Old Town. Just look for signs on windows and storefronts mentioning this. Anyways, the cable car will take you from the Old Town all the way to the top of the nearby hill, famous for its imperial fortress, which was built by Napoleon over 200 years ago. At the top, there's a restaurant and a bar, and also one of the best viewpoints of the entire city.
Another thing you need to try while you're in Dubrovnik is this sky bike. This thing is crazy. And I think this might be one of the most interesting things we've done in all our travels. If you can't tell below me, you have the amazing city of Dubrovnik, probably one of the best views we've had of the city. There's actually the pirate ship down there, and I'm just floating over here on these wires. I feel like this is straight out of the movie E.T. This is such a cool experience.
In addition to the sky bike, there's several other activities you can do up here. You can rent ATVs and side-by-sides if you're looking to go adventuring on wheels. There's also ziplining courses and a few other activities if you're looking to try something new and exciting on your trip. Seriously, we loved the sky bike experience here in Dubrovnik. We felt it was probably the best spot to get unbelievable views of the city and the Adriatic Sea. Not to mention, the staff running the sky bike were incredibly friendly, and we felt this was one of the most interesting attractions you can do in Dubrovnik. I mean, where else can you ride a bike with this view?
While you're on the hilltop, it's a great time to try the next item on our list, and that's to hike one of Dubrovnik's most famous hiking trails, the hike of Mt Srd. This hike runs from the imperial fortress at the top of the hill right to the area above Dubrovnik city walls, making this a direct hiking path between attractions. With the lower portion of the trail having large trees that provide shade, and the upper portion of the trail being tree-free for great views, this hike really does have it all. We found this to be a great way to get some fresh air and into nature while in Dubrovnik.
So we're currently on the hiking path that connects the Dubrovnik's Old Town with the observation point on the way top of the hill. This is definitely a pretty rocky hike, especially at the top, so definitely make sure you're bringing the right footwear, and maybe just take the cable car up if you're pretty unsteady on your feet. What's cool about this hiking path is there's the Stations of the Cross at the end of the switchbacks leading up the mountain, and on top of that, obviously you get an amazing view of all of Dubrovnik. We actually decided to take an Uber up to the top of the hill, and we're gonna hike back down, and based on how sweaty and exhausted we've seen people hiking up the trail are, we think we made the right decision. And speaking of getting some fresh air and outside Dubrovnik's Old Town crowds, you'll love this next item on our list. For this, we're getting on the water and crossing over to one of our favorite spots in the Dubrovnik area, Lokrum Island. Let's cut to Michael at Dubrovnik's Old Town port to explain how this works.
If you're planning on heading to Lokrum Island, you'll need to catch a ferry just like the one behind me. You can catch these in the port here in Dubrovnik. The ticket office is near the walls in the port area, so you'll pick up your tickets, you'll come here, and ferries leave every 30 minutes. When it comes time to board, just make sure the boats you're boarding have the Lokrum sign on it. to make sure you get on the right boat.
Once you board your ferry, it's about a 15 to 20 minute ride to Lokrum Island. We felt this was one of the best ways to see Dubrovnik's walls and port from the water, and gives you a unique perspective of the city from the sea. So if you can, be sure to queue up a few minutes before your ferry arrives, to ensure you can snag a seat along the edge for the best pictures. Once you arrive on Lokrum Island, you can explore it at your own leisure, until the time of the last ferry's departure. Once on land, you'll quickly find out one of the things Lokrum Island is known for: its incredible peacock population. There are literally hundreds of peacocks that freely roam the grounds of Lokrum Island, making it one of the most scenic spots to admire these majestic birds. And these aren't a new attraction. Peacocks have called Lokrum Island their home for over a century, thanks to Maximilian of Habsburg, who brought the birds to the island over 150 years ago.
So we knew there'd be peacocks on this island, but I didn't realize how many peacocks there'd be on this island. I got mama and two babies over here coming up to me. It's like Jurassic Park for peacocks. I love this place. And the babies are trouble.
Besides the peacocks, there is so much to see on Lokrum Island. For starters, the island's home to an ancient monastery, which was one of our favorite spots in Dubrovnik to explore. Here you can wander the remains of the monastery, with its history dating back nearly 1,000 years. Legend has it this spot is cursed, but if you can look past that, there are some beautiful botanic gardens lining the ruins, making this a pleasant spot to go for a stroll. And while you're wandering these ruins, be sure to pop into one of the most interesting pop culture museums in all of Croatia, located inside one of the buildings.
And if you're a Game of Thrones fan, another reason you need to come to Lokrum Island is they have the original Iron Throne from the show here.
In addition to the Iron Throne, this building also shares details on many of the Game of Thrones locations around Dubrovnik, several of which are located right here on Lokrum Island. So definitely take the time to explore this area while on the island if you're a fan. If you're instead interested in lounging and catching some rays on Lokrum Island, you'll be pleasantly surprised in hearing this is one of the best spots to lay out and swim in Dubrovnik. Given you need to take a ferry to get here, this inherently limits the crowds, making this one of the more secluded spots for a swim. So if you want to swim in the Adriatic, there's plenty of spots here, so be sure to bring your swimsuit and towel. If you prefer some tamer and more interesting swimming spots, there's also a unique swim spot on the island called the Dead Sea that you need to check out as well.
Another spot you need to visit while you're on Lokrum Island is the Dead Sea. This is actually a saltwater pool that's surrounded entirely by cliffs, and it has its own unique ecosystem. So there's actually sea anemones that live in there, so there's a small chance you could get stung by one of those creatures. And between the sea anemones and the peacocks that will come up and peck you while you're sunbathing, this must be one of the most unique places to swim.
While on the island, you'll also want to visit the remains of Fort Royal. This old military relic was originally constructed by the French and finished by the Austrians, making this an important military outpost for guarding the main city of Dubrovnik. And since this fort is located at the top of the tallest hill on Lokrum Island, it can be quite a hike to reach the top. And while the walk might be called the Path of Paradise, it's a long, scenic, and hot trek to the top. Once you reach the fort though, you can enter the ruins, which are a dark and moody spot to explore and perfect for snapping some cool pictures without the crowds. From the top, you'll also get some great views of the city of Dubrovnik.
So the walk uphill to the fort's definitely a little grueling. I'm a little sweaty on a hot day, but the views you get of the old town city walls make it absolutely worth it.
Our next top thing to do takes us back to the old town of Dubrovnik, and that's to visit several of the amazing history museums in the city. As we mentioned before, with the City Walls ticket, we highly advise against purchasing a standalone ticket to the City Walls, because for the exact same price, you can purchase the Dubrovnik Pass, which includes access to several museums and the walls, making this a much better deal. We'll include the details of this pass, as well as many other tips and tricks to maximize your time in Dubrovnik, in our upcoming Dubrovnik travel guide, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Of the attractions included on the ticket, two museums really stuck out to us. The first museum was the Maritime History Museum. This museum's housed in a scenic old building in the city and offers some great views of the harbor. We enjoyed slowly wandering this museum and admiring the miniature models and history behind some of the nautical facts. Another reason we like visiting museums is that they have free bathrooms included with your admission, so these can be ideal attractions to pop into whenever you need a bio break. The other great spot included on the Dubrovnik Pass is Rector's Palace. This building is the old location of where the ruler of Dubrovnik lived, and now has been transformed into one of the city's best history museums. Once inside, you can wander the old manor that used to serve the government functions and high society living. The exhibits here help showcase what life was like in Dubrovnik hundreds of years ago and help tell the stories behind the city's culture and events. In addition to being a house of government, the Rector's Palace was also a prison, and part of your entrance allows you to explore some of the grim prison cells that this building's known for.
The dungeons in here are so tiny and kind of a little bit spooky. We're in one of the cells called the dragon cell right now because of a dragon carving on the side of the wall. Definitely a little claustrophobic in here, but cool to see the history. And with these tiny doors, I don't think I could escape because I'd be hitting my head everywhere.
After exploring the dark side of Rector's Palace, let's cut to Courtney to share the next thing worth checking out in Dubrovnik.
So a really cool way to cool off while you're in the old town is to take a swim. There are actually a couple of cool beaches lining Dubrovnik's walls, and it's a great spot for a quick plunge. And if you're not in the mood to swim, there's also bars, so it's definitely worth checking out, and you couldn't ask for a better view. There are several of these swimming locations around the city, and these are a little known way to beat the heat in Dubrovnik. So make sure you bring your own towel and swimsuit, because taking a dip during the midday Croatian heat can be a great thing to do in Dubrovnik. Another great thing to do in Dubrovnik is to take boat cruises. We've seen a couple different kinds. I think the coolest is the one behind me, which looks like a pirate ship. But there's also ferries to and from Lokrum Island. There are smaller ships that go out for the sunset. So it's a great way to see the city from the water.
So the pirate ship cruise just pulled right into port as we were up here on the walls. And as it pulled in, it was playing sea shanty pirate music. And I don't think I've ever felt more transported back in time. My inner 5-year-old is just beaming right now. That was so cool.
And if nautical nonsense isn't something you wish, you'll love this next landside thing to do in Dubrovnik, and that's to say hi to the numerous local cats that call this city their home. Dubrovnik is home to a massive stray cat population, with most of these cuties being well cared for by the local community. Honestly, it almost feels like you can't turn a corner in Dubrovnik without seeing a new feline friend, and the whole city is almost like a living Where's Waldo looking for new cats. We couldn't believe how many daredevil cats we even saw perched precariously along the city walls, so they certainly aren't scared of heights, and there's certainly no shortage of cats in this city.
The next item on our Dubrovnik list is to try the food. Balkan cuisine is known for its unique spices and dishes, and sampling some of the local delicacies is a fun way to literally taste the Croatian culture. We'll be releasing a complete food tour of the dishes we tried in Dubrovnik, so be sure to check that out, as well as some of our other food tours from nearby cities in the Balkans.
And last, but certainly not least, is to take a Game of Thrones tour of the city. Dubrovnik served as the filming location for King's Landing, and you can visit some of the iconic sites used in the series, such as the Red Keep and the Sept of Baelor. We'll link some Game of Thrones specific tours below, which we've heard are a must-do if you're a fan of the series, and a fantastic way to immerse yourself in the wild world of Westeros. So that's it for our travel guide, guys. Please do us a huge favor and like this video if you found it helpful, and consider leaving us a comment and subscribing to our channel. We'll be releasing several other videos on Dubrovnik soon, and after that, we'll be exploring the nearby city of Kotor, Montenegro, where we'll be exploring the beautiful architecture and ruins of this mini walled city. Then, we're off to several amazing spots in Greece, so be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries.
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.